kind of Muslims who have increased anxiety and sometimes more suspect of institutions in the U.S. that might lead to less use of mental health services and more trouble with institutions in general.
Right. And do you think there are some unique issues facing Muslims in their mental health?
Well, the unique issues mostly are cultural issues. Mental health is culture defined. So what one culture defines as normal behavior or abnormal behavior might not be the same for other cultures. And Muslims being of many cultures will have their own subcultural standards.
And do you find that today's environment, it puts stress on the Muslims, extraordinary stress on Muslims? And how do you deal with those people? How do you help people to cope with that?
Well, certainly, I mean, the social political climate in the U.S. and throughout the world, it puts a lot of stress on Muslims. There's various levels in which we need to deal with that. For some,
but let me ask you a question: Is it important for a Muslim person who's suffering mental health problems to try to seek out a Muslim doctor to help them, because maybe there's some things they can understand that maybe a non-Muslim psychiatrist couldn't?
In some cases, certainly Muslim physicians or psychiatrists or psychologists are going to be more sensitive to the cultural needs of Muslim patients. In some cases, Muslims don't have that luxury. So, for instance, in the U.S., there's many communities where Muslim mental health professionals are not available.
Right.
And so, in those cases, sometimes American or non-Muslim professionals will be helpful. But certainly there's a strong advantage of having a Muslim mental health professional provide care to Muslim patients or clients, because they're going to hopefully understand and appreciate the cultural nuances involved in their issues.
And you talked about cultural issues. Do you find that there are cultural issues which keep Muslims who actually do need mental health services from actually approaching a doctor?
Well, there's several levels. One is that, as with any culture, there's a lot of stigma associated with mental health and mental illness. So in many Muslim cultures, people who seek mental health professional care, they're viewed or labeled as being majnoon or crazy or what have you. And so that will prevent them from seeking that type of care.
Right.
The second level is the way Muslims from different cultures explain their emotional distress. So many of them will explain it by, black magic or evil eye or jealousy or hasad is causing my emotional distress. So they're more likely to go to the imam, for instance. Many Muslim mental health professionals are now working with imams and help in a more holistic way.
Actually, the shayukhs and imams who really know about these issues which you mentioned, they are quick to refer someone to a psychiatrist because there's another problem, not the problem which they think. But I find that the inverse is not true. That someone who's a psychiatrist is not willing, in many cases, to refer somebody to the imam. Do you find this to be the case?
Well, that sometimes is the case, and that's one of the purposes of this journal. In fact, we have a special section called Faith-Based Practice devoted to imams and chaplains, Islamic chaplains, to bring those two words together.
But let me ask you, because you keep saying imam and chaplains, because sometimes the mental health issues, there's a specialized sheikhs who handle these things, So do you also try to incorporate them into your treatment plans?
Well, I can't speak for all Muslim mental health professionals. Certainly more Muslim mental health professionals are open and less are closed. Part of that is the influence of their education and training. Most mental health professionals, even around the world, certainly in the West, are trained in the West. And the reality is most Muslims in general are not in touch with their tradition, with the Islamic tradition. And there's a need to be trained in that Islamic tradition. And there's a need for that training to be made available. I mean,